So what I have done is I have taken an observation for my naturalist, okay? This is all the information that we have, and we are going to learn to identify this fish, okay? If you have a fish and you want to identify it from scratch, this is what we're going to figure out how to do. So let's say you are the person who took these photos. You found this dead fish on the beach, okay? You got a sense of scale with your hand. You get a close-up of the face because maybe you think that that's a unique part of it. And you get a total picture of the body. And then you mark the location that you find it, okay? It was found in this place that I'm not going to try to pronounce in, I believe, Uruguay, okay? So we have a location, which is pretty much the most important thing, and we have a picture of the fish. So we should be able to figure out what this fish is. Now, I have a good idea from the start of what this fish is, but let's say you had absolutely no idea. Let's make some observations about the fish that will help us identify it, okay? What is the most striking feature, chat? What about this fish stands out the most to you? Any answer is okay. If you look at this fish and what takes, yeah, it's long. That's my first observation. Yep, it's long fish, tube, very long, length, great. So you all have the same answer as me. So the main observation that I would make about this fish is that it's long, even eel-like, I might say. And you don't have to know much about fish. And there are a lot of fish that are eel-like but aren't fish. A lot of fish evolve to be eel-like. So that doesn't necessarily mean that it is an eel, but it means that it's long. And that's a pretty unique trait, okay? So that should help us narrow down to what fish we're going to go for. So the first thing I recommend anybody does when you're trying to identify a fish, unless you live absolutely in the middle of nowhere, iNaturalist will be an amazing tool. And even if you do live in the middle of nowhere, you can still make this work, okay? So you go to the Explore tab on iNaturalist. There are 164 million observations in the world, okay? If you go to fish, to the rayfin fishes, which is just all of the fishes basically that will be relevant to you unless you're trying to identify a shark or a ray or something, there are almost 7 million observations, okay? You can find what you're looking for. So we found this fish in Uruguay, right? Well, let's see. There's not a ton of observations of fish. There's a good amount here, but let's say we're not totally sure that it'll be there. So what we can do is we can draw a boundary, okay? And I'm going to select most of the coast here. I'm going to widen my search just in case, okay? We'll get most of the coast along Brazil. We're covering way north and way south of Uruguay. So this should help us basically. We should have enough of a range now where we can find the fish, and this will give us a list of species that have been found in that area. Now a lot of these are going to be freshwater because I've selected a lot of freshwater, so I'm gonna try to minimize that a little bit. A lot of these have been freshwater. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this list of the species in this area, okay, and use this as our jumping off point, as our options. So let's look for anything that's eel-like. Marbled swamp eel, sure, let's save that one, okay? Let's see. Who else is eel-like? These guys all look normal. These guys all look normal. There's some very cool fish in South America. Large head hairtail. That's a bad picture, but I do know that these guys are on the long side. So this is a long fish. It's an eel-like fish. Let's see. Common wolffish. This is another eel-like fish. You might have to dig a bit deeper than the original pictures, but these guys are on the long side. I wouldn't necessarily call them super eel-like, but they're on the long side. Argentine conger. We can add that one. Brazilian flathead seems to be a little bit long, so we'll add that one. This one's long, but it's got a very needle-like beak, but we'll save it anyways, so we can use it as an example to separate it. And this should give us, unless you're truly in the middle of nowhere, this should give us a very good idea of what fish that we have to work with. Oh, gold spotted eel, okay. Banded knifefish, sure, why not? So we have our list of possibilities, okay? We've identified 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 species exactly that this could be in the area, at least, okay? You might have to consider past that once you look at other things, but let's say that there's 10 species in the area that we've found, okay? And we're going to determine which of these it is. So we said the most distinguishing feature about the fish that we were looking at was its length, that it was eel-like. Now we've used the location to find out where we're at, and we've taken the most distinguishing feature. So, what do you guys think is the second most distinguishing feature? Just pick anything, okay? Anything we can use to eliminate the fish that are already up there, okay? Let's work our way down from 10 to a fewer amount. So, what is the second most distinguishing feature to you guys? Not many fins, okay? That's definitely an observation. There's not a ton of fins. There probably are fins, but they're sort of folded down. Keep in mind the specimen is dead. Color. So color is an interesting point. Often people try to use color to identify fish. And the reality is, in some fish, color can be a good feature for identification. And in some fish, color is a really bad identification thing because they can change color a ton. And especially a dead fish like this, I wouldn't necessarily trust color. I think that's a good point to make, is that color is probably not something we should go by. Okay, tail shape is interesting. Long face. All right, tail shape, long face, and let's say not many fins, like not very obvious large fins. All right, let's take those into account and let's look at the fish that we've selected. Okay, we'll start with the marbled swamp eel. We'll look at some pictures of the marbled swamp eel. Okay, marbled swamp eel. Is the face long enough? Maybe. It is lacking fins overall. Okay, tail shape probably looks about right. It is a little bit too small, but you know, things can grow. So we'll keep this here for now because things can grow. That could just be a picture of a small one. All right, let's look at large head hairtail. Okay, let's find a picture of that. All right, so immediately I'm noticing the face is even kind of longer with sort of like a sharp beak here and some teeth. And look at the tail shape. The tail shape is pointy. Now, our guy didn't have a pointy tail. He had sort of like a rounded tail. So I think we can safely eliminate that guy. Common wolffish. Added this one as a good, distinguisher, but I think we look at this, we say, okay, well, there's a very obvious fin right there. This face is not very long, and this tail is completely wrong, and the body is just way too thick. So we can eliminate that guy. Argentine conger. All right. Sure, let's look at this guy. Well, this guy's got about the right coloration, if you did want to go by that. He's got about the right long snout, and his tail does round. It doesn't come to a point. So this guy's definitely a possibility. A Percophis, Brazilian flathead. Let's look at this. This guy, he does seem to have a pointy tail. He seems to be a bit on the thick side, and his nose is a bit long. Okay? Yeah, see how his bottom jaw comes out even further? So just by the shape of the face can actually help you with a lot of fish. So we can safely eliminate this flathead. Next up, we have this guy, and just immediately looking at the map, we don't even have to look at the fish. We can look at the map here. Notice how this guy is all in the inland, all in freshwater. So although this guy is eel-like, and it is a pretty cool fish, whatever the heck this is, I guess it's a freshwater needlefish, it only exists inland. So this is not going to be something that we find on the ocean where we know that our fish was found. Gold-spotted eel. There's only one observation in the area. But this is a fish where I think color might be pretty useful, as you can see all of the large gold spots on this fish. It's a pretty distinct looking one, and in fact, if we look at all of the pictures on iNaturalist, they always seem to have the gold spots. You're not finding pictures that don't have that, so we can eliminate that. Banded knifefish. Okay, this one's caught pretty close to the coast. It's in freshwater, but not far into freshwater. But this guy has this sort of like rudder thing along the bottom, this distinct bottom fin. The face is very rounded and the tail is very pointy because it is called a knife fish. So we can probably eliminate this guy. This is another knife fish. We added him just in case, but we can eliminate him as well. And Besinichthes, paulensis. Okay, so this guy he's on the long side. His face looks, it's a little obscured here, but his face looks like it could be about correctly shaped. His length looks about right, okay? The shoe based on the hand that we had in the other picture. He does seem a bit too long, but that can be an age thing. You don't want to go by size unless you know for sure how big something gets. So this is a type of worm eel or snake eel, okay? And then we've got Argentine conger, which is a type of conger eel. And then we've got the marbled swamp eel. Okay. Now, I believe... Oh, no, they're on the coast. Okay, so these are our three fish. So we have gone from a picture and a place and having absolutely no idea what the fish is that we're working with to 3 possible species, okay? We could have a marbled swamp eel, we could have an Argentine conger, or we could have Bassanictes paulensis. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is, because there's not a lot of good pictures of this fish on iNaturalist, I'm just going to put this fish into Google so I can look at it more. And I'm immediately going to notice that it seems to always be quite long and worm-like. And that makes sense because they're called worm eels. Also, the face looks like someone put their hand in a sock puppet. And that is not quite what our face of our fish looked like. So I think we can safely eliminate, based on how long and stringy this guy is, and then the face looks really dumb. I think we can eliminate Bassanictes paulensis. Okay, so we're down to an ocean conger versus a marbled swamp eel. So let's take a look at both of those. Okay, and let's try to figure out if there's any distinct difference that we can utilize. Now, the first thing I'm noticing is marbled swamp eels do seem to have some kind of spotting to them generally, but it's not 100% consistent. Some of them just have sort of like a model to it, okay? But they do have some spotting to them. That's interesting, okay? And then Argentine conger. All right, now this guy is more on the stubby side. He doesn't seem to have much of a pattern. It's overall sort of just like a lightish with a brown. All right, is there any distinguishing features in, let's say, the face? This guy has sort of the round snout with a large mouth opening up here. Okay. And Argentine conger seems to have a slightly smaller mouth that opens a little bit less, but that's kind of nuanced. I think that we can look at these two fish side by side, and based on patterning, I think we can do this one. Now, again, you don't want to consistently go with color or patterning because they can be pretty inconsistent. But with these two fish, where it seems like the marbled swamp eel almost always has some marbling to it, you know, some patterning, some spotting to it, and the conger does not. And when we look at our photos here, it doesn't look like it has any spotted patterning to it, okay? It's a little beaten up, that's what all this white is, but the color itself just seems to be pretty stable. Not to mention the face and sort of the thick lips here. I believe that this is a Argentine conger. So after about 15 minutes, and that's with a lot of explaining, you know, if I went about this quickly, I have taken a fish from part of the world that I have never been to, with just some photos of the fish and knowing where it was caught, and gotten all the way down to the absolute species of the fish, conger or Beginnius. And there you go. That is how you identify a fish from scratch. That whole process will work with any fish from anywhere. Even if you're working with a fish that's very poorly documented, iNaturalist will give you a good starting off point. You can at least get to genus. And then if you know the genus, you can find books about how to identify the fish within that genus, and that'll help you get down to the species itself. Oh, ChatGPT is awful at identifying fish. Don't ever give ChatGPT a fish to identify. Please, spare me that.